It was 6 alcoholic bartending roommates and like 15 dogs in a house that hadn't been touched in like 25 years. A slumlord, true slumlord. We were living in one tiny little bedroom, credit cards I was living on that were maxed out, and literally no money coming in, and payroll due. You know, I never missed a payroll when I went into business for the first time, where I really realized the idea of you have to wake up 7 days a week on. Yep. You can't really be off. If you're off, you're not answering for a full day. And that's a big deal.
Well, welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Everything with Levi Warner. A special episode, The Stogies with the Homies.
That's right. Yes. Here we go.
We got my friend Tucker Veltkamp here today. We call this podcast The Pursuit of Everything because I feel like it's a pursuit of business, health, family, everything. So we want to pursue everything. So let's just kind of get started. Tucker owns a very successful franchise here in town, serve the best sandwich. And
it's actually not a franchise, Levi. I created Topz.
That's created. He's a founder.
I am the father of
He's
Topz.
Like the Ray Kroc of Topz.
I am, yeah.
Yes, he should patent that queso because it's like there's crack in that stuff.
Well, we are trademarked. So, yeah, we are. I own the trademark, yeah. On Topz, I own the trademark anyways. And we actually, you didn't misspeak because we are a franchise, but I'm the seller.
Right, he's a seller, yes. Yeah. So let's kind of just get back into your background here a little bit. Are you from Billings? Did you grow up here?
Yeah, so I was born here, St. Vincent's Hospital, and grew up here until I went to Billings Christian Elementary School. Then I switched to public school to Will James when I was in 7th and 8th grade. And there were some things that went down, and my family decided to move to Colorado Springs. So I got uprooted before high school and moved to Colorado Springs, kind of had to recreate friendships and networks and sporting stuff and all that. And spent some time in Colorado Springs, graduated high school there. Came back to Billings to get my real estate license. And then, after about a year, I just realized I'm not quite ready for this adult business stuff. It was over my head. It seemed really boring. I didn't understand the power in meetings at the time, So I was sitting there listening, and it was valuable. I didn't put as much value into it as it probably deserved.
Right.
So I left and went back to Fort Collins, Colorado, to Colorado State, and pursued a degree in communications and business there.
Fort Collins is fantastic.
It's a great city, man.
Yeah.
Jim's Wings is amazing down there. One of the best.
We went down there for some rugby tournaments.
Oh, did you?
That was a good time. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a fun place.
So I went to college for communications and business, and I was a bartender. I was bartending 5-6 nights a week. My first job I got fired for getting too drunk and missing day bar. And my boss actually showed up that morning and worked the shift for me, and I knew I was in trouble, man.
Oh, yeah.
She let me go after that one.
Yeah.
But that pushed me into going and kind of hand selecting where I wanted to work next. And I got a job at Tony's Bar that had been there for 50 years. And I just knew it was a good one because all the guys bartending were 35 to 40 years old.
Right.
They'd stayed there a long time.
They had to be making money.
And they were. So I started as a bar back for about 6 months, and I was notably the best bar back that a lot of these 15-year guys had ever had. And they said that to me, but I mean, they were pouring a bottle, and I would have a replacement. They wouldn't even have to look for it. So I worked my way into this bartending gig, and that was kind of crucial for me. In a money standpoint, I was going to school and I wanted to make as much money as I can. I wanted to go into business for myself, but I had no idea what. I just knew I needed money to do so. Graduated college, and in my kind of senior year, there was not a thesis, but a senior project where I had to go pick someone to shadow. And from the bar, I knew this guy that owned Taste of Philly down there.
Okay.
And I did a internship or not internship, but kind of a thesis, communications thesis with him. And then I also met the owner of Fat Shack and got pretty close with him. And he's got 33 stores and did a deal with Shark Tank, actually.
Oh, wow.
So the sandwich industry was calling me, I think.
How much do you think, and so I bartended when in my early 20s, and I think it shaped me. So I was kind of rough around the edges, didn't really communicate well. How much do you think bartending kind of shaped how you communicate with people and, just how you interact? To me, it was huge.
Yeah, I think it was definitely big. You're kind of on a stage, at a college bar too. So that's kind of cool. You're pretty public facing. But I will say in high school, I was voted to be the most likely to be on a reality television show.
Funny.
So I've always been, the word that I've gotten is animated a
Okay.
lot. I never knew what that meant.
Right.
But now I've just really embraced it.
Right.
I thought it was a diss sometimes. Like they laughed at me for reality television. Those guys are kind of weird, you know?
They make money though.
They do make money for sure. Yeah, for sure. That was in the reality television boom period, you know, too. Real World and all those shows.
That was huge. Yeah.
It was for a while.
Yeah. For me, it was hard to like come out of my shell. Like, and so I was always jealous of the people that were, you know, that came real easy.
Yeah.
Where I was just trying to always, you know, walk around and be the tough guy. And, you know,
you're more introspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And introverted.
Introverted.
Yeah. Not anymore, which is funny because I've completely shifted gears and now I need to be around people all the time.
It's a good thing though, because you're a thinker, you know, and if you can be a thinker first and then learn how to communicate, that's good. I think it was backwards for me as I was a communicator.
Right.
And really in college is where I really honed in my communications skills. I was speaking in front of like 75 people, forming persuasive arguments and stuff. And I think that was pretty valuable to me. I don't always give that a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
But I think that
and mostly the communication majors are, you know, the college football stars.
You're right. I was sitting next to all the athletes, man, because I was a major in communications, minor in business.
Right, because it's hilarious. You watch Monday Night Football. I went to Michigan in communications, right?
Yeah, you're right. And I was working so much, 5-6 nights a week till like 2-3 a.m. that I didn't want to take calculus in business. So I just decided I'm going to do communications and prioritize work 50% and school 50%. And it worked out for me. I graduated and at the time, this is back to origin story. At the time, my dad's done commercial real estate here in Billings a long time. Yeah. And he had leased a spot to a place called the Spicy Pickle that went out of business in about 10 months. And it was kind of a fire sale. Like they were really desperate to get out. Yeah. You probably know the people involved. They're great people.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that it was such a quick transition.
Yeah, it's just people that are doing well for themselves in other ways, and they got into this, and it just didn't work out, and there's a lot of partners involved. So it was for sale, a straight-up fire sale. So the bartending money went straight in, and all of it, 100% of it, went straight in to buy this little franchise at the time called Spicy Pickle. I knew I was getting into some problems, but I didn't realize how insurmountable the problems would be. Spicy Pickle went public in 2008, and by 2010 they were penny stocks, and they actually defaulted on $4 million worth of debt. I'm not saying anything new here. This is written about. And they went bankrupt, and they went from having 75 stores to 75 under construction, so that's 150 down to like 5 by the time I was involved.
Oh wow.
And 3 of the 5 called me about a civil suit, like right after I opened. I'm like, I don't want to sue anyone. I just want to make it, man. I'm new. So yeah, that was a tough period of my life. I was diving into, you know, whatever I had to just ease the stress and burden of having, you know, credit cards I was living on that were maxed out and literally no money coming in, and payroll due. You know, I never missed a payroll, but I walked out of that situation with a lot of debt, converting it into Topz and where it is today.
Right. That first year that, you know, that tough patch, how many employees did you have? Mm-hmm. Did you start with? Did you kind of end up with that first year?
I didn't even, thinking back, you know, I didn't even know what I was doing. How many people would I need? You know, like in bartending, you'd sell $3,000 by yourself on a Sunday. Like, what does a sandwich look like? Okay, we need 3 people, and we're only doing $700 in a day. Is this profitable? I used to make $700 in one day. That was mine.
Right.
And so I probably had 3 to 4 people on a shift, and probably a staff of like 10 to 12. We probably only needed a staff of 3 total. It was that slow back then. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a steep learning curve. But I went in there, Levi, and I learned in a year and a half exactly what was going on in that business model. I knew everything that was the reason it wasn't working. Right. And I could go into that for an hour straight, but I used that and the information I was getting from the customers I had a few options. I was going bankrupt. I was behind on my commercial rent by like 20, 30 grand. And I was in a no compete clause, and I was also, you know, in a long-term contract in the lease and in the franchise agreement where I could either go work somewhere else and try to pay off the commercial lease until I could get a sublet, or try to get out of the franchise agreement and do something new and fresh and do it on a shoestring budget. And I was able to get a full release from that agreement just with one letter from an attorney. They were on their last leg, so it worked out. And then approval from the landlord to actually wipe the back rent and let me sign a new 5-year lease. There's 3 years left. So I got a full 5-year, and I presented my business plan for Topz. It happened. Topz was created in my parents' guest room. That's how low of a point I was, very intoxicated. The idea came to me. It was a dark period of my life, but it turned out amazing. When your back's against the wall, you really figure it out.
You have to.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice.
No,
and
I didn't.
Guys like us aren't cut to work for somebody else. So you kind of have to figure it out or go spiral down the drain.
Once you do work for yourself, it is really hard to go work for somebody else. I don't know that feeling because I haven't gone back, but there's many times where I have looked at a W-2 situation. I'm like, this is great, man. Even if it's $75,000 or $50,000, $40,000, that's your money. You can do whatever you want. With a business, you can make $150,000 or $200,000, but depending on where things are at, what you're investing into, if the year prior was good, oftentimes you're not taking home $150,000 or $180,000.
Right.
The money stays in the business unless you have back-to-back really good
You got to
years.
string them together.
And I'm just throwing numbers out there randomly,
Yeah.
so I'm not
You got to
saying
string
that's what
those
we're doing.
together.
Yeah,
then you've got
that's
employees.
huge.
Yeah, the W-2 looks a little tempting once in a while.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
You leave at 5 and it's not your problem anymore.
Yeah, you're
That's the
right.
big thing.
People don't realize that going into entrepreneurship, whether it's being a realtor, insurance person, or anything for the most part, but especially in restaurants because you're open 7 days a week, it literally starts the moment you wake up, there's someone opening that store. And in the moment you go to bed, there's someone leaving that store. And there's 3 of them for me, 3 stores. It's nonstop.
Right.
Nonstop.
And you're dealing with a lot of first-time employees, younger employees.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Are they showing up? Are they turning the lights on? Are they collecting the money that they're...
You gotta nip it in the butt quick, because if you have a staff that's not showing up, it's going to spread very fastly. And if you don't take care of it fast, you're going to end up in a situation close to hell.
Right. Did you learn anything good from that franchise, though? Like the systems? That's what the franchises are good for. Is franchises are good for, this is, step 1 through, checklist,
Well, when they handed me a 10-pound book, I realized that this is ridiculously unreadable. It's clearly been touched by a lot of people, and it's terrible. And that's what I learned is
that's a good point.
What not to do.
Right.
Simplicity matters, man. Simplicity is important. And even from food quality to the flow of the line, all of that, I learned what not to do. Right. I don't think I picked up anything other than experience and the ability to look what should be done and what shouldn't be done.
Yeah, there's no better learning lesson than failures.
I would not have had Topz without that failure. I got a lot of insight on what not to do, which helped me cultivate what I should do.
Right. And so then you were in that space for 5 years?
Yeah, so I was in that space a year and a half with the former brand, and then I was in that space for like 8 years afterwards, and really we turned it to Topz, and I had like $2,500 in the bank and bills beyond that. But from November 2015 to March 2017, the biggest month of my life, we literally doubled the best month prior that we'd had. And all of a sudden I have cash, and the bankers are like slapping my hands when I come in and make a deposit, because it was a tough situation for a while.
And what kind of pivots do you think that you made that, because I'm a huge buy local guy, right? I'm going to Topz. I'm not going to Subway.
Yeah,
right?
I appreciate that. So to think back, it's been a little while, but number one is I'm going to call it the previous brand for now, but the previous brand was pre-making the sandwiches in the morning. They would plastic wrap these things and they would put it in a heater box. So when someone ordered, you'd pull off a shelf and put it on. It would stick to the panini grill. It just didn't work. And the food was in the back. So you'd order, you'd take a number, the kitchen printer would print it in the back. And it was a huge bottleneck. To do $800 in a lunch, it was next to impossible. But beyond that, the food quality, it was frozen bread. in poor quality meats, sliced way too thick.
Okay.
And they had a bread called focaccia, which no one in Billings could pronounce even.
We're in Montana, so it's...
So you'd spend half your time, during a lunch explaining to people most things aren't spicy here and how to pronounce focaccia in Tolero. Portland concepts don't work in Billings.
Right.
Billings is a meat and potatoes state, and I know that. They want simple but quality. So we basically moved in literally the best meats in America. If there's better, please show me, because
Right.
I will buy them. Most people aren't buying them because their cost really high. I went in with a high food cost, good price from day one, and it won me a lot of market share by doing that. I ate it in the shorts, but I worked on volume for a long time.
Right.
They brought in things for me because it just doesn't sell. It's too expensive per pound. You know?
And that's our business model too, is we build in volume. So I understand your ladder's right. That's okay. Yep. I understand that, beating, negotiating prices with vendors, and I mean that's a constant
tough.
quarterly game. That's not, you don't do that once a year. You're going to light your hat on fire. That would be a first.
Well, it'd probably go viral. So
that would be fantastic. Yeah.
So in the food business, it is a little different. You do negotiate 3-year deals. And you really, any deal can be broken, whether it's a lease or anything else.
That's hard because commodities go up and down, and
Yeah, but the deal that you want, and people are like, "Oh, I'm not doing an exclusive deal." But if you leverage the buying power that you have, which we have a lot of buying power, you can get margin deals where the deal is on margin, it's not on price.
Right.
And that's what I have. And I have a rebate built into it. It's a good deal, really good deal. They flew me to Monterey, California to golf, Pebble Beach. I don't remember the other names, but it was like a 2-day golf trip when I signed the deal. It was a good time, man.
I bet.
It took 6 months to sign the deal, and this is in March or 2022 when it was difficult times. Like, I took 8 months to close a deal that if I would have closed in 2 months, it wouldn't have been a good deal. So I constantly would show up to a negotiating meeting and, have a nice breakfast, lunch or whatever, and then be willing to walk away and be like, hey, I just don't think we're going to talk anymore at this point. If you guys got something better. And probably 6 separate times I did that. Whereas like beat everything or we're not doing a deal.
Right.
And that worked out for me.
Patience is tough.
It's tough when you're losing money doing it too.
For sure.
When inflation's roaring its head and you need to get a deal done.
You need to.
So yeah, that's tough. But it's long. If you can play things long term, it's tricky. But that's why established companies have a little easier time because they're not managing no money. They're managing enough money that they can buy time, and buying time is critical in negotiating.
A ton,
big time.
Yeah, and you're stressing payroll. You're stressing your building rent or your mortgage. I mean that takes a lot of persistence.
And that's the biggest thing too for like restaurateurs out there. If you don't have sales, none of it matters. Like you have to figure out how to go get a decent amount of sales, and then maybe you'll lose money at that decent amount of sales. Then at least you can go back and figure out how to make money. But it's really hard to get consistent, steady, strong sales.
Yeah. I tell people sales cure everything.
They really do.
If you've got sales, you can figure everything else out.
You can figure it out because you have some cash flow rolling in. But during inflationary times in food, food went up ridiculous amounts where I was like, I had a pro forma and I'm looking at the pro forma like I'm making good money at these sales. Well, I wasn't because it was changing week to week and it would go up by like 10%. My food costs had a 13% swing. That's straight out of the bottom line.
That's huge.
That's
when you're
a
selling
big one.
$8 sandwiches.
Yeah. It's a big one.
We dealt with that when the pandemic hit. Lumber prices went through the roof, and we had contracts with people who were building their houses for it. And you take that right in the shorts. You
change up on them like in the middle of you can't do that.
No, you just
same
can't.
with us raising we didn't raise prices right away. We went after our buying and tried to fix it that way. We don't want our customers to feel that kind of stuff, and if they do, it needs to be done right over time.
And that's a huge lesson because like our lumber yard, helped us out a ton. They were like, hey, these prices are going to change, so let's buy a bunch up front. You buy buy in bulk.
Yeah.
Because you're going to build, at that time I was building 40 houses a year. So they're like, you're going to go through the lumber. So let's buy it up front, get the good price, and, let the other people, struggle with that.
And
high
he
prices.
says that nonchalantly, but that's a cash crunch right there.
That's
You're putting it all on the line on some lumber, man.
And that's, that's
the right move, though.
It's being in business for 10 years. The banks trust you.
Yeah.
Those relationships, are huge.
Yeah.
And you know that in your business, you got to have that. There's tough times where you need those relationships to get you out of a jam. So how long was it from the, you started picking up some steam with the first location to opening location number 2?
So it was November 2015 when we opened, and we started planning number 2 in 2018. I think November 2018, I officially made an announcement. And that video is really cool. You can find it on the Topz Facebook page. It kind of goes through the entire history of building Topz all in one video, and then kind of an announcement reveal video. And at the time, I wasn't quite good with the banks yet. So I had to put the money I had earned in 2017 and half of 18 in cash into all the equipment, which was very hard.
That's not an easy.
It cut a lot of my cash gone. And then 2019
you feel like you're doing great, and then all of a sudden you look at your account and it's like, oh gosh, it's all gone.
Yeah, you just spend it. But 2019 went very good leading up to the open of Topz 2, extremely good, especially looking back how well it went. I was keeping steady amounts of money while buying things to get a store open, which was crazy. But still, by the end of 2019, we had just opened a new store, August 2019, and then 6 months later, COVID hit, man, and it was like, all this up, and now we're gonna lose everything because the winter's already hard. It's hard every winter, but March is we're all good. We made it to March. Well, March never came, March and April were like February months.
And then you've got employees to take care of.
Oh, yeah.
That COVID was a super scary time because we didn't know what was going to happen.
Uncertainty was the problem.
is the word because we didn't know what was going to happen.
It probably penciled out a little better than I expected, but not March, April were brutal. And we were down at our first store that was just killing it before every year. We were down probably 15%, which was wild, when we were growing 50 to 100% for some time. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like that 2018 to 19, not that much growth, but it was still above average growth levels. And then it went backwards. And it's just like, what do I do? I'm just not used to this. It was grow.
Right.
And then setback,
Yeah, we had no idea what was going to happen. The real estate market did the absolute opposait of what everybody thought it was going to do.
People made millions of dollars.
It was insane. We pivoted because we thought that the market was going to crash. And I've got, we talked about this earlier. I've got hundreds of subs that have families and they've got bills that they need to take care of. So we pivoted and did a real basic entry level house, a whole street of them.
Genius.
And they just absolutely killed it.
You were ahead of the curve. That was the start of that. And today, you see how many are out there. I mean, a lot of people have copied what's going on.
100%. And the main reason is to take care of our people.
Yeah.
If you come from a good place, you're always going to do well.
Yeah. Do you feel like 2020, 2021 was a period where you got the most momentum?
Yeah, we were picking up. And then COVID hit, and then it just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so weird the construction industry just went bananas during COVID. And was it just restaurants or was there other places struggling? Restaurants?
I think restaurants took the brunt of it.
2021 ended up being a good year, though. All that free money rolling around. I mean, it was euphoria hit, where it's like, it's busy every single day of the month and almost every month.
And now we're paying for it in interest rates.
We are. And the consumer is hurting right now. So 22 was the inflationary period, which tough to make money in 2022. 23 was for us a flat year, but 24, the sales shut off for a lot of different people. People's consumer household debt is at the highest level it's been in quite a long time. People are broke, man.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't have a lot of money.
Credit card debt's through the roof, and then the rates go up.
Yeah,
people are.
That hurts all demographics of people when those rates go up. Mm-hmm. For a young family that's making $70,000 a year, they can't buy a house, or if they do, it's very risky because the payments are absurdly high after they drop every dollar
and
they've ever saved.
Scraping to pay for it.
So they can't afford to go out. And then at the higher levels, big developers, even like yourself, you're now paying the interest rate on your bridge loan or anything else that you're using financing on. It pinches you. Even if you have plenty of personal cash, it's still a mental thing where you're
absolutely.
like, this could go really bad really quick.
And that cost also ultimately gets passed on to the consumer.
It does.
In every aspect.
Yeah.
So and that's the bummer of our economy. When you're opening that first location, this is just a little kudos to you because I go into your shops all the time. It seems like you've got a good staff all the time. They're always, very courteous. And for you, how do you manage your people? What's your leadership style?
Yeah.
Because to me, managing people is one of the hardest things in business.
I am. I'm big on leaders, so I've not always picked the right ones, but for the most part, I've done all right with leadership. And when it's not the right leadership, I tried. There's always a honeymoon when you first hire a leader, and then you start figuring out real colors. And if real colors are wrong, it's not like you can just cut them out immediately. It takes time to replace, to also fully fill it out. So that has been difficult, just managing that. And I've been through that even in the last 2 years. Right now, I've cultivated a really good situation where I have one of the best leaders I've ever had in this guy, Ryan Hall. He's super good. He's bought into what we're doing and into the future. And I don't like to micromanage. I've found my way, early on. It's like, what does my role look like? I started making sandwiches, and then I was very hands-on manager of one store. Then 2 stores, I was a little less hands-on, but I made all the decisions. And then 3 stores, I tried to hire a guy to sit on top of all 3 and be the operations guy. That did not work out for me. That was a big problem. The productivity wasn't there.
Okay.
Some poor decisions were being made. So I was 2 hands off. So after 2021, that happened. I opened a 3rd store. 2022, I was back diving in. I have to know about all this stuff. I can't be a non-decision maker. But looking back, the reason that didn't work is I didn't know the person I was putting in place that well. So it could have worked, but it would have had to been a longer stretch of time. Today, I'm kind of back to that 2021 where I'm more hands off than I was, but I got a guy that can make the right decisions.
Finding that jockey to run the horse is super, super important.
It's key. And then getting them, you just got to give them upside. Like that's what's worked for me, is just making sure that they know that they're tied to the success of what I'm doing, Topz business, but I really got them bought in. I care about his family, in seeing him come up as much as possible on the way.
And that's fantastic. To me, that's where the growth is in every company, is when you get those people that are bought in, and they're your cultures, your core values align, everything aligns. That's when your business can really grow.
That's something I'm learning more and more is I feel like my core values, they kind of come off just through verbal and body language, but having a nice set of clear, established values, it's weird because it's just a few words, or a few sentences.
Exactly.
But to have it visually there, it does something to the mind.
Well, like what we do is, it's one thing to just have them on your wall, and it's just words on a wall.
Yeah.
But like in our office meeting every week, we go through one core value and like what somebody in our staff did that week to show off that core value.
It seems like so gimmicky,
it does.
People beating their chest talking about core values,
right.
But it is important because how your customers are treated, the others in your organization treat each other. It does come down to value.
It does.
What are your values? And if everyone has their own individual values, you're going to have a lot of problems.
And your company is an organic thing. So
it's a living, breathing thing.
And so the people that work for you have to buy into that organism, the organizational foundation. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just floating. And I learned this the hard way.
Yeah,
I've had a couple employees that I mean, and again, like everything good is learned out of hardship, right? Mm-hmm. So, but if they're not working for your core values, then I think you gotta get rid of them right away.
Yeah,
Customer service is one of our huge ones.
Yeah.
We word it a little different. And again, I know your customer service is fantastic.
It's critical, man.
Yeah. How do you guys approach that?
Without the customers, we don't exist.
Exactly.
So every single transaction is a Super Bowl in my mind. And you can't always portray that. It doesn't always work that every transaction is treated as such, but I really put an emphasis on that. I want to make sure that, the customers are cared for, whether it's a $10 transaction or a $1,000 transaction. Very important to treat each single transaction is a big deal, because it's not just a transaction. It is an ongoing relationship that feeds the entire business and all the people involved in it.
100%. And like our business is a little more like the average person lives in their house every 7 years. They move. But your lifetime value of a customer, like I might come there twice a week.
And it's long.
Yeah. To where like I've got to treat my customers, over the top special. And I know you do that too, because my lifetime value to Topz is huge. The ratio is because I'm coming back once a week at least.
Yeah. People get it wrong too in the restaurant business, where there'll be an issue and, it'll be like, this was not our fault. This is your fault. It's like, do you realize by blaming anything at all on the customer, you're giving up? For over $27, you're losing thousands possibly, or hundreds of dollars. We just try to hear out problems. If there's a problem, I want to address it immediately. And I address a lot of the problems myself still on all channels that messages can come through, and even some phone calls. I get them and I don't wait on them. As soon as I know about them, I'm in contact. And you can look, online, especially on some of the group pages. We don't have a lot of negative, because when we do get something negative, I'm in touch like immediately.
And that's hard, because it's easy for people. You hear a lot more of the bad than you do the good.
You do.
Right? People will voice the loudest opinions are the negative ones.
Totally, by a long shot. But they had an experience. Like, the first part is embrace the fact that they had a negative experience, and then just try to listen. Like, what can I do to make this situation better? Like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And almost every time that person will pull down the negative comment in a group. It's tough on Google. It's almost impossible. There's a lot of burner profiles. But in groups, like, you can touch base with people on Facebook pretty easily.
Absolutely. I'm really big on personal development. What is your, are you a reader? Do you read? Are you part of, entrepreneur groups, that kind of stuff?
I am more of I think naturally I associate with a lot of entrepreneur people. I didn't do it on purpose. It just kind of went that way. And I think that's because our lives are flowing in similar directions. So I am around entrepreneurship people almost 90% of my time outside of time with family.
It helps growing up with your dad being a big real
That does
estate
help
agent.
for sure, yeah.
Kind of get you in that mind frame.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, from John Bonners to Rob Carsons to Connor Lorenz, John Wanderus, Corey Willis, who else was, I said Bonner, Tim Loudon. I mean, all these guys, somehow we've gravitated, and it always starts with, hey, I like what you're doing, one way or the other, me to them or them to me. We should meet up and get coffee. And then you just start talking on a regular basis. And 5 years later, you realize the people that you talk to on a daily basis are all doing similar things to you.
Yeah, you and I met at the gym.
Yeah, we did.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was just kind of, business owners just kind of...
We get it.
We just kind of flock to each other. Yeah, we just kind of flock to each other.
Because we can relate. The pain is very relatable. And it's nice to share the uncertainty, some fear, but also bravery and success. I mean, all great things. But there's a lot to relate on.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so now you've got three shops in town.
Yeah.
What's the future of Topz look like?
So we formed a franchising company in 2021, Topz Franchising LLC. And, I'm just waiting on the timing to be right. And we'll rock and roll that thing. I've decided I'm not going to force a square peg through a round hole. So I'm not just going to throw marketing dollars.
Which us as entrepreneurs, we do.
I did it 2021,
we
22.
Yeah.
Throwing money at nationwide marketing.
Absolutely.
And I had 30 leads, some of them really far down the road, pretty serious stuff. But it just didn't pencil. And I know why it didn't pencil. We're just not quite there. You need to be pulling really strong bottom line margins to be able to take a 7% or 6% royalty from someone. Mm-hmm. So it's going to happen. It's just I'm not going to force it. I got to timing can switch, and it happens very fast.
Yes. And we were talking about that before we got on camera, is those, the tough years. Last year was tough for every industry.
Tough.
What are kind of the keys for getting through those tough times for you in your business? Because I don't know a lot about the restaurant business, so I'm generally interested.
So since 2022, I made a point to invest into accounting, and I have very, very, very up-to-date information on a week-to-week basis. We do weekly P&Ls, and so knowing the numbers is critical, because if it's going bad and you don't know why it's going bad, like inflation is happening, you don't know, like you're selling every product at a loss or something crazy like that, right. It's 6 months to get ahead of it. If you're working with an accountant, no offense to some accountants, and they're not getting you numbers for 3 months, that's a big problem. You're making decisions today based on 3 months ago.
And that's a huge problem for people just starting businesses. I mean, I know from experience, right? Because you start, especially in the home building, right? Because we start a house and we sell it in 8 months.
Yeah.
If you don't know your numbers and, you're good at sales, you're good at, making the product, but you're not good at the numbers, like that's going to catch you faster than anything.
Especially during down times, when it's all up, it's easy to hide. And I've done that before, in the early days. I cared about numbers the whole time. I just didn't have up-to-date information quick enough. So that's one thing. And then the other thing to get through down periods, I mean, normally the doors will only close if you choose to close them. There's always a way out to stay in, if you know what I mean. Whether you're behind on this payment or this payment, people are pretty reasonable, and it's not in most people's best interest that you just go away. So you can always negotiate through things. And then also the biggest thing I feel like is getting out of your own head, man. If you're just dwelling on the fact that it's not going well, it's not going to help. You have to be looking at, this is what I can control, and I'm going to do these things to counteract how it's going, and I'm not going to fall in love with the results. Like during down economic periods, if you're in love with the results, you're not going to be living a very happy life, and that's going to impact the whole company.
You can't control how many people are coming through the door, but what you can control is how great your sandwich is.
Yeah.
Right? I always tell my staff and my crew, like, we just got to get back to the basics. Let's get back to building a good product, taking care of the customers that we have.
That's how it started.
Yep.
Yeah. It's critical.
It seems like that's always the answer for me.
Yep. But you could be, that's the tricky part though, is you could be doing everything right. And when it's not going well, like how do you know whether it's you or the macroeconomic impact? Like it's hard. Yeah. That's a tough mental battle.
Yeah. It's sometimes you can kind of look at the market, right? You can go down the street and see if your competitor's doing okay.
Yeah.
Like in real estate, I can see how many houses are on the market.
True. That's nice.
Yeah. I can see, there's 8 other houses on the market that we're competing with right now.
Yeah, that's nice.
Right.
Yeah, for me, it's I've always I'm pretty hard on myself, and I will just sharpen. But ultimately, like when your structure is, you're operating 3 stores through managers. You can't over sharpen, or you're going to discourage your people.
Feels like you're beating them down.
You got to encourage as well, and That's been a tough one, man. Sometimes if you over sharpen, you're walking on eggshells with your own people, which that's a bad feeling.
That's a bad feeling as well.
Oh, man.
Absolutely. So those tough times, they shape us, though. Mm-hmm. They build us into better companies.
Which brings me, to this year, man, just after, it was a tough go since 2022, really. And we've had a good year in 23. 24 was a solid year, but it wasn't a good year. It was a tough year. That we had a lot of adversity, and kind of led me into diversification, man. I am a huge believer in when the time's right, you can't do it too early. I've been in Topz for 10 years. But diversification for me has just given me multiple horses in the same race, which has helped tremendously with my mentality, also with my ability to handle those short-term crunches. Yep. Because ultimately, if a business can't provide for you personally, you're going to be in a bad position.
Yeah, we talked a little about you're investing in some real estate. You're doing
not
some
investing,
real estate
deals. So I'm a commercial real estate agent, man.
Yeah.
So I guess in your world, maybe you do consider it. I'm working with investors and placing money, finding tenants, flipping property with them, all sorts of things like that. And it's been a really, really fun time. I was able to sell the loft to my friend Connor Lorenz, who just bought it and flipped it into the Lux. And that was the biggest transaction I've ever done.
That's a big transaction.
Multi-million. It's and it's going great down there
Good.
too. He's a 28-year-old sniper, man.
Good. Well, and I think when you're able to, 2 points to that. One, don't do it too early, like you said. I think a lot of people, they get into business and they try to pivot into things too early.
Yeah.
Before the first business is really taken off.
Yeah.
And then for guys like you and me, having that little bit of something different keeps our brains sharp.
That's so true. And I think that, for me, for a long time, literally probably the last 8 to 9 years, I was a one-track minded person. I believed in the one track. You stay on one track. Very important. Like that's the only way to build something great. But then after, some very difficult times, it's kind of like, I think at some point, the multimillionaires say diversification is everything. Well, I kind of understand why now, because there's certain things outside of your control. And you got to play the marathon. And with Topz, it is a marathon. I'm not going to make moves at the wrong time because I got to keep pushing forward. I can push forward in other lanes and wait for the right timing to push very strongly forward for Topz.
Absolutely.
And that's what diversification has allowed me to do, is play it out, watch from a million miles up, and make the right move at the wrong time, because you could make the right move at the wrong time and it'll all fall apart.
It should have been right, but it just wasn't.
It was just wrong timing.
Just timing.
Yeah. Timing is, do you think, in decisions, do you think timing is the most important element of making a decision? Or I was thinking of the other option. Timing or, I don't know, let's just go with that.
Yeah, I think there's twofold. I think having all the information.
Yeah.
And then moving quickly.
Quickly is huge, man.
When it's time. Right?
Some of the moving quickly is just be responsive, man. That's one thing I don't know if you've noticed, but when people reach out to Tucker most hours of the day, and that's a burden that you wear, I mean, you can't get away from the phone, but I'm also a very reliable person, which works for me, but it's torture at the same time.
Absolutely. I come from a family of farmers and blue collar. My dad was a truck driver, and when we go to the farm, they would always say, "Oh, do you smell that?" And his cow shit. Mm-hmm. I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And they're like, "Yeah, that's the smell of money."
Yeah.
And I used to get so much crap from my dad that he'd be like, "You're on your phone all the time." And finally I told him, like, "Do you hear that phone ringing? That's money."
It's so true,
right?
Man. You're right. It's like, it's a blessing that the phone's ringing.
You'd be shocked. We talk about this all the time. How many deals people probably miss because they don't answer their phone.
On the weekends, after 5 o'clock,
all the
first
time.
Thing in the morning, big time. A lot of the deals that I'm doing are all very time sensitive, like extremely. Right. And some of the things you can say on that phone call to someone secures it moving forward, which will end up closing the deal.
Absolutely. We're selling a house for some people and they're buying a house, and their house is a lower end house. I mean, it's a beautiful home.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to not take their call after 5 because it's not $1 million property. To them,
Brutal.
That's everything.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself in their shoes.
So true, man. And being reachable, that's kind of like, there's a lot of industries like an attorney industry where you don't reach them, you reach their assistant.
Right.
And their assistant doesn't know anything.
Right.
And it's really stressful. It's
Absolutely.
like, man, I really need some answers to this. Yeah. That's huge. I think in commercial real estate, doing transactions and deals and helping people buy things or lease spaces, that's the reputation I want to build. Is I'm very responsive and attentive to problems.
And that's, we do mostly residential. We talked about earlier. In the commercial real estate, I think that's the big thing missing.
Yeah.
Is that drive, that hustle.
Yeah.
How would you? I know you would describe yourself as a driven person. Mm-hmm. What makes guys like us tick? What do you think drives you to do it every day?
Ooh, that's tough. Some of it's fear driven for me, for sure. I do have an element of fear without a doubt, but the biggest driving force, and probably some of the fear is I want time freedom eventually. I'm willing to, handcuff myself to the phone for the next 20 years even, but I want to build towards something where I can do what I want when I want and choose to do. I can't do that now, and I'm not going to kid myself like I can. Right. That's why I'm responsive, because I can't afford to not answer my phone.
Not many
right
people
now.
can.
Yeah, I have to answer, but one day I'd like the ability to go where I want, be where I want, talk to who I want, just freedom, time freedom for family, kids, things like that. That's really important to me.
Yep. And the fear thing really hits home because I think most entrepreneurs are fearful of failure at some point, right? Like,
big time.
Because it's always dangling.
Starting over too is a big thing. You see a lot of people work in businesses for 30 years and then not be able to sell them. Yep. How disappointing would that be?
That would be disappointing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like in our industry, there's so many tool belt builders that don't have a sellable business.
Exactly.
To where, we've got the accountant that has the book right.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And so it won't always have to be Levi driven. It can be managed by somebody else and purchased by somebody else.
Which is huge, especially with Infinity Homes. You're smart by not doing Warner Homes because Warner Homes, it is still sellable. You've seen people do it, sell their business with the last name on it. But I think it's a little easier to sell. And I'm not saying you're trying to sell.
And someday that's
you just build it
to
possibly do that one day.
And that was what I thought about. I mean, I was in a 1-bedroom apartment when I thought of that. There was no huge success story.
How long did it take until you were starting to feel like, okay, I'm making enough money that I'm comfortable and I feel moderately successful?
Probably
because you're going to say I don't feel successful.
I still don't feel
of
there.
Course.
Yeah.
I know.
Probably 8 years. I mean, I've been selling real estate for over 20, and I've always done really well selling real estate.
Really? So you were an agent first, and now you're a broker.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not a broker. My sister's the broker.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Similar.
So, I let her take all the responsibility.
Which is cool. You got to delegate a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hear you on that.
Yep. So I started like in 2006.
Okay.
And it was great.
So
I came out of the gates. Yep.
2014 you started feeling it though?
Yeah. Well, because we went through 2008. The crash.
Dude, that was bad.
So it took a hot minute and I got divorced at the same time. So it was like straight in the crapper.
Not to get too deep, but I feel like was the divorce some financially driven?
Nope, it wasn't.
So a lot of times financial stress adds a lot to a relationship.
No, that was just all me. And I mean, it worked out for the best.
Yeah,
everyone's happy now.
Awesome.
But yeah, that was a crappy time. That was the darkest time.
I can't imagine. It's weird because COVID wasn't that hard for you, but
right.
I always wonder.
Hard.
For restaurants, was 2008 as tough as COVID? I don't know.
It had to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Real estate was really tough.
Are we going to crash again here, man? It's been a very long time since we've gotten a true market crash that's like 2008 style.
Yeah. I feel like we're through the toughest part of this little dip right now. I think we're coming out the other end of that right now.
Good to hear. You hear it all ways right now. A lot of economists are very confused.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows, man. Which I'm hoping that we go through a little bit of a boom period. I think we've all worked hard for it, and it's. I
just need another 10 years.
Yeah.
That's it.
100%. Do you think what does retirement look like for you?
I think I'll always work. But
as wanted, where you want to.
But I think the time freedom, like you were talking about,
huge.
To where I have staff that
you don't have to answer the phone all the time. Yeah, you can choose when not.
Yeah,
to.
I'm still pulling the strings.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd ever be good at retirement. I'm a little too self-destructive.
If you could go anywhere though, you'd probably do it for a year or something. But then, from what I hear, going somewhere great or even traveling for a year, it's a job in itself.
Yeah, retirement to me is working where I want, when I want.
Agreed. That's where I'm at too. And that's why I like diversifying into some industries, that I could do from a beach somewhere on a winter vacation or something.
I'm really big into investing in real estate. I own a bunch of rentals and, obviously this building. And so that, and then, we started the mortgage company. We've started, everything is vertical for us. Everything is in the housing.
Completely vertically integrated.
Everything is vertical for us.
That's crazy. How long did it take you to figure out to do that?
I've always had the vision. It just took me probably 8 to 9 years to
It's a lot of different moving parts to be managing.
Right. And you got to have the right people. And again, I'll drive this point home is you have to build the main business first.
Yeah.
I think people try to do that too quickly.
The main business is the homes.
Yep. It's Infinity Homes, right? You got to build that one strong. You get that, you got to have Topz.
Yep.
And then you can branch off.
Exactly.
But I think what happens is, and I think Instagram and the internet's done a lot of this.
Yeah.
People see, oh, this guy's got 5 businesses. I need to,
Oh,
and
it's a nightmare having 5 businesses, though.
Absolutely.
People say, like, I want 5 businesses. Like, dude,
No, you don't.
Depends what the businesses are, okay? Like, if they're super employee-centric, it's going to be tough.
Right.
It's hard managing people. It's very hard.
It's,
they don't
to me,
like
it's the
being
hardest
managed.
thing.
Yeah, they don't like being managed.
Yeah, managing my sister is the easiest because she acts like a guy, and we can yell at each other and tell each other to F off, and then 10 minutes later, it's like, hey, where are we having lunch?
Do you think that your business is fully vertically integrated? They are all parallel income streams. Do you have any perpendicular?
Not yet.
Interesting.
Not yet, but I'm working on that.
Because that's kind of could be vulnerable in like a market crash where it's like hardcore on housing, which I learned that in the restaurant thing the last few years. I'm like, man, when restaurants struggle, like my life really looks different. Even the hope, it's tough.
And I live pretty lean. I learned that the hard way.
Do you have kids?
I do. I have 3 boys. Yep,
so
I have 3 boys.
They're all older now, right?
Yeah, my youngest is 17.
So you're in the golden years, man. Where your overhead's going to be way lower. That's amazing.
Yep, my middle son works for us.
Awesome.
And this goes back to that bartending point.
Yeah.
I'm making him get like a part-time retail job.
Great.
And because I think you have to learn how to talk to people
and work with people.
You have to
show up for a shift.
Absolutely.
And stay there for the whole shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my main questions here that I always ask people is, to that point, is your support system at home.
Yeah.
Because being married to being married to someone like us is tough.
Yeah.
I'm happily married now.
It
This is our 10th year. She's just starting her business. She's been working at the hospital for 15 years.
Oh, cool.
But to me, it's so important to have that person at home, that rock, when you're answering the phone at 7 o'clock at night, they're not mad at you.
Seriously. And it's not always a perfect world there either,
Oh, no.
But my high school sweetheart, basically, we met in middle school, actually. And we're pretty different in middle school, so we never talked. But when I came back that year to get my real estate license, I met her. And we were kind of love at first sight, but it was messy in the beginning. So I left to get away partially from her. But then she ended up coming with me because we loved each other.
Right.
And then we were young, and split up a few years after being in Fort Collins and went away for about 5 years and then got back together right a month before Topz opened. We got back together. And it was so critical for me because having someone that, is number one, very supportive. She's not very career-oriented, and she's very maternal and just supportive generally. And without having her, I might not have had the confidence to do what I've done and the rope to do it. That's a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
But I will say there's something to be said, at least for, strong mothers like Danielle is my wife, who's incredible. Shout out to Danielle. She's the best. Without her, I wouldn't be here. But they got to see some results from time to time. If they're not seeing results, man, you probably shouldn't take that 8 o'clock phone
vacation.
call.
They need,
or the house they want, or to provide for their kids. They're looking out for their kids. So you have more leverage to take the 8 o'clock phone call when they're seeing some results.
100%.
But in periods of time where there's no results, it can be a little difficult.
Yeah, but it's super powerful though for me to have that person that was there at the the lowest, right? When I talk about Jocelyn and I talk about, we're in a 1-bedroom apartment. I've got house plans laid out all over the place, budgets, spreadsheets all over.
Yeah.
And so she saw the growth. She's experienced it and deserves to reap those benefits.
Danielle and I were living with, it was 6 alcoholic bartending roommates and like 15 dogs in a house that hadn't been touched in like 25 years. Slumlord, true slumlord. We were living in one tiny little bedroom, and I was making $7.50 an hour. No tips or anything. I was like a bouncer to start. And we were living off my income, $275 a month for the room. It was rough. It was tight. So we've definitely grown together in a big way. It's awesome, man. She kind of came from a trailer park, man. So it's nice to have someone that I can, just create their dreams and make them a reality.
Absolutely.
She's given me a lot of fulfillment. That's big for men. Is if you don't feel like you're producing or providing in a way that fulfills your significant other, That's a real big pain. It hurts.
Think so.
It's tough on the ego.
Yeah.
It's tough waking up in the morning when
Right.
you know like they're not satisfied with what I'm supposed to
Absolutely.
be doing.
Well, and I'm like that with my whole staff, with my,
Yeah.
obviously my family.
Yeah, approval is important.
Absolutely. I want to be the man.
Yeah.
I want to be like, I want to be the guy. If you've got a problem, I want you to come to me. I want to be the guy.
You
that
are
fixes it.
kind of the guy, Levi.
I appreciate
around
that.
the circles.
Right.
Yeah, you
I
are
want to
the
be
guy.
your guy. If you got a problem, I want to fix it. You know what
All
I
right,
mean?
cool.
I don't want to ever like be the person bringing the problems. I want to be the guy that fixes the problems.
What I hear from Levi, even before I met you at the gym, was, I'm working for Levi Warner now. It's a great opportunity. And yeah, that was it. It's over for me now, man. I'm working with Warner. Like, this is great. Things are going great.
You have to paint your vision big enough for your staff and your whole crew to fit their vision.
You've clearly done that, because
Right.
I heard that before you and I ever met. I was like, Levi Warner, who's that? But then it took a while. We were at the gym together, and I didn't make that connection until a little later. But then I did. That I had been hearing about you probably for a year or two before. And we go into the gym. It's not like we're social butterflies.
Right.
We're in there to work out, and we
Right.
leave. So we probably saw each other like maybe 6 months to a year
Yeah.
before we actually
Yeah.
said hello.
Yeah.
We're not there for
know.
social reasons,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's cool to meet you. If I would have known, I probably would have came up and
I
said
probably
what's
would've
up
done the same
earlier,
thing. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like our friend Corey is good at introducing people.
Yeah, true. Oh, he's not at all, man. You're right. You walk in there and everyone's looking down sometimes.
Right.
They're funny, man. I like
good,
them, though. Shout out to Yellowstone CrossFit.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on here
Happy to be here.
hearing your story, dude. This is great. Having a little stogies with the homies is always fun. I got a couple questions I always end with.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's probably one of the hardest that people have to answer is, what's the worst advice you think you've ever gotten?
I used to have a really good one, but I feel like it's shifted. The worst advice I've ever received, I think partially just to make it like, it may not be understood, but just work harder, like work hard. And there is some element of work hard that is bad advice. Like if you're working hard and not smart at all, like work hard to me in the early days would have been work every single shift forever. But then I would have had something that never really did anything of scale. So against, some pretty close to home advice, I was like, I'm opening a second store. Like, I am working hard. It just looks differently. And people don't understand that. We're like, you don't work shifts. I get those comments sometimes. Biddle knows. You don't act like you're working shifts. And it's like, it's tough to comprehend, but my work looks a lot different. And I did choose to go there because now I have the ability to grow.
Right. I struggle with that too because I tend to make it look really easy.
Yeah.
Even to my clients.
A lot of pressure.
They're like, oh, this deal went so smooth. We could have just done this ourselves. Like, you don't see what we did on the back end. Mm-hmm. All the strings and stuff that we had to pull to make this deal happen.
The pressure, man, is pressure in decision making. Like, pressure in decision making, it takes time, believe it or not. And when you say I'm working all the time, it's because the things that are on your brain, huge decisions that you have to be making, and small decisions that turn into big things, it takes a lot mentally.
And one thing I've really been working on to that point, and that I'm glad you said that. That's fantastic because I'm starting to do just like quiet time, whether it's a half an hour,
You're
20
better
minutes.
than me, man.
I struggle with it because I always have to have music playing or something like that.
Totally,
all the
I
time.
am that guy.
Yeah, all the time. But I'm finding that if I have 20 minutes, if I can just sit at my desk or go for a walk and not have any music playing, like I'm coming up with good ideas.
Yeah.
I'm problem solving, and
Yeah.
I think I heard that from Alex Ramosi. He's like, you just
He's
need,
a smart guy.
dude. Sometimes he's too smart for me.
Some of the things.
Just sometimes I can't, like certain moods I'm in. Like he's just too smart.
Some of the things he says is, he's
Yeah.
a smart dude.
Yeah.
for
Back
sure.
to your working hard comment. The one that bugs me is the work smarter, not harder from your competition
So it's
or
kind of
something.
flip side,
right?
yeah.
Like it bugs me because I'm like, you don't think I am working smarter and harder than you. They have to go together.
When people don't have multi-units too, I've had some restaurateurs, that maybe just bought a place like a year ago or something, and we bump into each other and say, you're not working your spot like I am. It's like, I have 3 stores. You don't understand what this is looking like. But if you're working a store and something happens anywhere, you can't go. So that was big time advice that I had enough vision, which I do credit. I have fairly good vision, and it's helped in commercial real estate as well. I live my life like 5 years from now. It creates a lot of genuine unhappiness. But I think it's a major strength for me from a business perspective.
I'm always looking in the future.
Same.
Like which way the trends are going. Like if you go into our houses, like we're always ahead of the trends. We're, you know, that kind of stuff. Because I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, this is just how we've always done it. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll get a new software or whatever we have to do to make it better.
That's why it's so hard to sit in a room quiet, because being present is a challenge when you're a future-oriented person.
It is hard.
And you're looking out for yourself in the future, but when are you going to be here now? And I would like, that is a goal of mine, to be able to live in the moment for once. I don't think I ever have since high school.
Right. The only time that I'm good at it is with my kids. Right?
That's true. That really pulls you into it. But the phone rings.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Dad's got to work or you don't get a bike.
But yeah, having a kids has been the biggest blessing of my life. I have 4. Wow. So I got a household of children.
Entrepreneurs that say that they have to miss everything because they're working, I think is baloney. Because I coached wrestling, football, baseball. I didn't miss any games.
Dude, we're gonna have to talk off air about that, because I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like, it's so unpredictable. I feel like my day I don't keep a schedule, because I go where is needed, when is needed, and how is needed. Like all day, 7 days a week. Yep. I go to problems. I go to future business things, whatever it may be. I'm where I need to be.
Right. My dad was a truck driver, right, and worked 80 hours a week, so he was never able to go to.
So you're a first gen entrepreneur, man. Shout out to you.
Yeah,
that's a tough lane.
Yeah,
how you figure that
one
out? You know,
I'm a huge Ed Milet fan. I don't know if you've heard him. He talks.
Ed Milet.
Yeah, talks about being the one that changes everything for your family.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
To me, that's a huge deal, because I want to show my kids it can be done. My dad worked, like to your point, worked super hard, 80 hours a week all the time, but never enjoyed life. Never, I want to buy a plane. I want to do all of these things.
That's awesome. Are you enjoying life yet, though?
I am enjoying life.
Dude, congrats. I'm not there either, where I'm like trying to, but I'm living too far in the future sometimes where it is, it's a lot of stress.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to sit back and say, we look back at that 1-bedroom apartment. Yeah. And like, how awesome was that? When you think back your first
that
shop,
provides a lot of fulfillment, man. It's where you came from with the dogs and alcoholic roommates. And I mean,
but sometimes that's some of the funnest times. So sometimes you got to think back and be like, we need to appreciate this right now.
They were uncertain times though too, man. Like, can I make $275 this month so I can pay my rent?
Yeah. The problem we talked earlier off camera is now that the stress is the same, the numbers just get bigger.
That's true.
So the stress that you had,
so true.
The stress you had with all the dogs and the alcoholics is the same stress you have now.
There's like more free time, I think, though, where I just didn't understand. There was a moment in time and it was when I went into business for the first time, where I really realized the idea of you have to wake up 7 days a week on. Yep. You can't really be off. If you're off, you're not answering for a full day. Right. And that's a big deal.
And I'm in a spot now where, I just went on a 4-day golf trip. And
that's nice.
My phone didn't ring.
You deserve it, though. You've been at it for a long time.
Yeah, my staff handled everything. Yeah. They're fantastic. They're rock stars. So, best advice you've gotten?
That one's kind of tough. 2 years ago, it would have been John Bonner's the only ships that don't sail are partnerships. But now I'm in some, so I feel like now that's a good thing. But I still think being cautious of partnering is important. But anyways, the best advice I've been given, I don't know.
It's a tough one.
How about this? Like a Gary Vee quote, and I put this in my 40 Under 40 publication back in 2020, is like your future is basically based on the decisions you make. Like, make the right decision. Every single decision you make, whether it's you wake up, what am I going to do today? All these things impact you in various ways.
In everything that you do.
Yeah,
your health,
big time.
Your mental health, everything.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a piece of advice, but I do think of that a lot. Like, make the right decision. Go meet that person. Go talk to that person. This is how business is done. That's an interesting topic. I'm not trying to stretch this too long, but
we've got time.
When I was getting my real estate license and working for a year, I didn't really understand what business was, but all business is being in the right place, talking to the right person.
Yep.
So the more that you seek out the right, and if you can cultivate an environment on a day-to-day basis where opportunity is lush,
right.
I mean, that's a beautiful thing. But the more you get out there and talk, don't get discouraged if you don't get something done the first time, but just being around and speaking about what you have going on normally leads to business. So how about this for best advice?
Yes.
From my dad: open mouth, open business; closed mouth, closed business.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's super powerful.
I'm glad we got that one.
That is super powerful, Tucker, because I think that you always have to be talking to people. And my big thing is be a likable person, do right by everybody, because people want to do business with their friends.
And genuine,
right?
Like, being genuinely yourself is such an important thing.
Right. Like if I didn't personally like you as a person, I probably wouldn't go to your shop as much.
No.
Right. Even though your sandwiches are fantastic.
Yeah.
The queso's amazing.
Being likable is probably the most important thing in business.
100%.
More important than the product.
You know, like take my HVAC company, for example, right? Like there's probably 8 in town.
Your HVAC company?
Yeah.
You got one of those too?
Oh, no. The guys that I use.
I was like,
no,
man, what?
The guy, I'm just,
you were entrenched in this industry.
No. or my plumber, right? Like, I could hire any plumber, but
Sparky.
I like him.
What about the electrician?
Yeah, all of them, love them all. You know, and I do business with them because they're my friends. Yeah. And I want to keep doing business with them. And then I take on the responsibility of keeping them busy because I want their families to be taken care of.
That's an interesting thing too, is you like start out friendships like mean something, then you leave like high school and it's like, what is a friendship? No one really wants to hang out anymore. What is hanging out? Well, today, like my group of people looks like friendships are people chasing similar things because we can relate and we end up being in the same spot that used to be school, but now we end up, you know, doing business either across the street together or, you know, kind of hearing each other out on what we're going through. Those are my friends now, and they're also business associates.
The seasons of friendships changes.
They do.
Like I still have a great group of high school buddies. We get together and hang out and laugh, but like my core friends revolve around business.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we all do business together. We, you know,
mutually beneficial relationships.
100%.
You know, those are long-term sustaining relationships because everyone's got a family. Once you got a family, it's the priority. So I can't be just hanging out with you because you like me. I like hanging out with people that, you know, they like me, but they're also, you know, feeding into my life one way or the other to, you know, help me support my family.
Right. We're going to end with my favorite question, and this is one that kind of we have kind of a running tally on the answer of this. Do you love to win or hate to lose more?
Hate to lose, man. Hate it.
I think that's worst. We're getting more females like to win more.
Yeah.
Men hate to lose more, and I think you get a lot of athletes.
How about this? I expect to win.
Oh, 100%.
So I hate to lose.
I literally just said this to somebody the other day. Like, I expect this to sell this house.
Yeah.
Right? And when I don't, then I'm upset.
It's miserable. Disappointment is rough, man. Yeah, like you got to be careful almost where you set your expectations too. After literally doubling and tripling sales at Topz, I mean, my expectations were literally, if you go back and watch some of the podcasts back in 2017, it might be even embarrassing. Like, I thought I was a genius. I really did. I thought I was a genius. And that's not the case.
We all did at first.
It took a while to figure that out. But yeah, setting expectations to be real, but like lofty at the same time. If you set expectations super high, you're going to be a loser your whole life, right?
Exactly.
That's tough to live with.
That's how we live, though. That's how entrepreneurs live.
So tough.
And somebody asked me a question in a podcast: how do you celebrate your wins? And I told them I don't celebrate my wins. Like, there might be a high five or something
genius,
like that.
Man. That's important.
Because to your point, and I love that you said it, it's because I expect the wins to happen.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
huge.
You have to look at your losses and evaluate. I dwell on those because you got to figure out what you did wrong.
That's more important than anyone will understand. But if you think about it like a Bill Belichick or Michael Jordan, These guys do not celebrate wins at all.
My favorite is Nick Saban. Wins the national championship.
Nick Saban.
Looks like somebody just ran over his dog.
But he wins nonstop because it's what he expects.
Because he's recruiting right when he gets into the locker room. He doesn't stop.
Back to business.
Yeah.
That's huge. Keeping that mentality level.
Yeah.
If you celebrate the wins too much, you will get lost I would get lost
absolutely.
in the sauce.
And I did that when I was young.
I did too. And that's when I thought I was a genius. I'm not.
Right.
For the record, I'm not a genius.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, we'll end with that. Thank you so much, Tucker. Everybody go eat at Topz. Any commercial real estate needs, call this man.
Yeah, man, I'd love to work with growing businesses, aspiring entrepreneurs. I feel like I'm kind of like a commercial real estate agent, but on top of that, I'm a little bit of a consultant that comes built in.
Yeah.
I'm good with numbers.
Consumer goods, numbers, all of that kind of stuff.
Ideas, design. I mean, I really love business.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for
Thanks
coming,
for having
This was
me.
great.